Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on AI and policy shaping the future of innovations and governance. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. David Smith. My first questions with you, how policies can foster responsibility AI innovations?
Well, that's a very good question as you begin to look at it. Policies around different types of artificial intelligence are going to be very important, not only for innovation, but in controlling how the governance is put in place around that. If you look at how AI and policy together are shaping innovation, AI is such a transformational industry right now because the AI applications are transforming many different industries and parts of industries. It's actually AI is and its applications beginning to really transform economies. It's transforming the way we work, the way we learn, what we do even at home, and it's is transforming societal structures as well now, is what we're beginning to see. And it's doing this at a very accelerated, really an unprecedented rate globally. But there's challenges around ethics, privacy, and some of the regulatory impacts of it as well. But as you look at totally on innovation, it is allowing us to make step changes in innovation. So where many times innovation follows more of a curve, more of a linear curve, uh, beginning to use all these AI tools, even though they have many inaccuracies and errors in them at this point still. It's allowing us to do step functions up of improvements on innovation. Um, and we're seeing that really globally today. But you need to begin to understand that for AI and innovation to work, we have to look at ways to mitigate the risk. And part of this, excuse me, is developing some frameworks, both around ethics, around regulations, and around responsible use of AI, particularly in innovation, in
Thank
areas
you.
like healthcare and others. And those frameworks really need to be put in place. Also, the use of AI depends today very heavily on processing power, particularly GPUs today, which are very power hungry and takes a lot of them to do what we're trying to do today. And it takes advanced algorithms. So for AI to be used in innovation, which a lot of innovation is bootstrap innovation, where the companies, the startups don't have a lot of money to pay for this type of resources. The infrastructure, particularly a public infrastructure around artificial intelligence, needs to be in place. And this supports things like the actual computer processing itself, things like scalable storage solution. Uh, you cannot do AI if you don't have good data, particularly around innovation. Data is often ugly and not very good. So that's one of the places where we're going to see that happening.
Thank you. My next question for you, balancing regulation and technical advancement. What you want to share? Your views about managing regulations and technological advancement.
You have to balance those to work there because many, particularly as you're talking about innovation, the companies are using generative AI, which is really different than the traditional AI we've used in the past. And generative AI can create original content, where in the past, traditional AI was just acting upon the data that it was digesting. So this content can include images, text, music, and other types of things. And this really opens up really new fields. And the policies that are there need to strike a balance between safety, between privacy, uh, and innovation. They must manage also manage uncertainty uh, that this type of AI brings up, while they're also seeing you have to balance this against existing laws. Most of the laws that govern areas in this policy areas here were written long before generative AI was around, and things like copyright, the ability to say who owns the intellectual property. If I use a generative AI program like Work or others to generate a new innovative idea, in that example, does Tesla own it because it was used on their AI tools, or do I own it? And that's an area where the regulatory environments really are really very incomplete and silent on issues such as that intellectual property ownership. Also, we're seeing initiatives come in place. There is an initiative called the AI Governance Alliance that aims to help transform how AI shapes our world. And it's wanting to make sure that the tools that are employed in AI and the policies around AI enhances human capabilities and fosters inclusive growth, and really looks at how to raise the level of all the ships and promote global prosperity. So those are some of the others. But we just have to begin to look at how to do the regulatory framework, the ethical AI development, and it has a big role in governance besides just the regulatory side. These AI tools really have the potential to revolutionize governance by improving decision-making processes. They can help increase transparency, and particularly in the government realm, improve the public services that are there. But there's real concern still about data privacy, about data ownership, about surveillance, and how that impacts. But this should have, in the innovation area, a significant impact on economic development, and it should impact the global economy, because it will create new jobs, new industries, while also displacing certain types of work. But so on the side of the question you asked, policies will need to address these changes to help the workers that are displaced transition to new skills that are applicable in our digital economy today.
Thank you. My next questions for you: the global race for AI leadership and geopolitical implications. What you want to share?
Oh, wow. That's a good one, because there is a global race, and there's not clear leaders as you look. If you look at uh, the preponderance of the big AI tools were all generated within the United States, but they rely on things from other areas. We're seeing, for example, in PRC, quite a bit of work going into AI right now. We see that in the MENA region. We see that in other parts of Asia. We're beginning to see it in Brazil. Uh, it's one where there's so many different types doing what we're there. Um, in the United States, we've had for decades and decades investments within AI and a very robust private sector. I first got involved with artificial intelligence when I was an executive at the MCC Consortia. And this was back in the early 1980s. So AI goes back a long time here. And the US government here has begun to implement policies to try to ensure the ethical use of AI, but also to maintain our competitive advantage. China, though, is making significant investments in research and development. And the Chinese government has put together a outline of a plan that they would like to become the world leader in AI by 2030. Um, in the in Europe, the EU is really emphasizing more the governance part, particularly the regulations with ethical consideration, data privacy. They want to put together a comprehensive framework, just like GDPR is a comprehensive framework there. They want to do the same thing with artificial intelligence. Um, and you see others. UK is actually has tremendous efforts right now, particularly around the governance portion of AI.
Thank you. My next question for you: what are the challenges like privacy, bias, and accountability in AI system has?
Wow, we've talked about those throughout the whole thing. So, uh, yeah, some of the real challenges is how can we implement regulations to ensure the ethical use of AI? And the problem with the regulations that I've seen in place, such with that, is that as you develop AI tools, there's no real restriction today on how they're used. So these regulations need to address things such as data privacy, individual privacy, uh, the algorithms which are being used. Are they transparent? In the last election we've had here in the United States, there was a lot of finger pointing around algorithms that were not transparent, that were one-sided. Uh, for example, using some of the tools here, when you entered a candidate's name with something they did, it showed nothing because the algorithms were built to ignore that. So that type of algorithmic transparency and accountability are real important there. Uh, that the international collaboration though on this, Sharif, as we talk about with so many of these things, is so important. You know, these our international governments need to work together. They need to collaborate to create international standards and frameworks. We're in a global digital environment today where country boundaries are not important in many instances anymore. So how can we put in place an international collaboration that is essential on how do we take these standards, these regulations, these frameworks, and address these cross-border challenges, and to ensure the use of AI globally is appropriate. You know, like we've seen with some instances with cryptocurrencies and others, uh, entrepreneurs in particular are often going to countries where there's no regulations to develop, to deploy, and to work on these versus places where they're highly regulated because there is not international collaboration and a common framework and standards there. Well, because of AI is so pervasive, this is an area that we really have to jump on board soon to get those global standards and frameworks in place. And by doing that, it lets us go and create an educated workforce using AI. And particularly as we prepare the workforce for an AI driven future, it is very different. We have to promote more digital literacy. We have to provide really tremendously enhanced training, skills, opportunities for reskilling and for upskilling of all the workers. And once again, we have to see how we can handle the ethics of artificial intelligence, which are really very pervasive across all of its utilization. And the governments have a major role of shaping the future, and it's critical how it helps balance innovation with the ethical and regulatory and societal needs that are there.
Thank you. What's your closing remarks for today?
Well, let me just close it with some steps for how we shape the future. And we've talked about many of them before, but let me put them in a more concise framework. We just got through talking about we need to develop comprehensive regulations that governments, professional societies, international bodies need to continue to develop and refine the regulations that ensure the ethical use and the fair use of AI, again, such as privacy, data privacy, accountability, transparency. We need to develop ethical AI development standards. And these development standards should have guidelines and standards for the AI developers, the AI engineers and companies to follow and work there. We really need to invest more and more in research and development to help drive innovation. For example, most of the AI tools being used today are using GPUs as their processor, like the NVIDIA GPUs and others. But we see advances in quantum AI beginning now. We see advances in neural networks being applied to artificial intelligence. My personal feeling is quantum enhanced neural networks are probably one of the futures for really accelerating AI. And there needs to be investments both in the government and private sector in this to drive the innovation. And this includes funding for academic research, corporate research, public-private partnerships, and support for startups. And, just a couple of last things. We need to enhance the public awareness and education. This has to include things like promoting digital literacy. You've heard me say many, many times on your program, Sharif, that we're in a time of lifelong learning. Artificial intelligence and its uses is even speeding up the requirements for that even more. I talked in the last one about international collaboration. We have to do that. We have to create those international standards and frameworks. And really, finally, in this last point, we really have to work hard, very hard, on how to support workforce transitions. How do we develop programs to help workers that are affected by the AI-driven changes in the job market? This includes, like I said earlier, reskilling them, upskilling them, as well as putting in place some policies to ensure that there is a process in place for displaced workers to use. I go back and look at times where we've seen dramatic transitions in the past, how we've changed from steam power to mechanical power to electric power and others, all of those displaced workers. But we need to look at ways to temper those changes today, because we have learned from the past. We need to stay out ahead of this one and not play catch up on it. So I guess, Dr. Sharif, that's probably my closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Thank you all.